Hello! Welcome to Story Time. We have 4 characters in our story today, and one is someone we call the little maid, and she does a very, very good job. We like her, and the next one is Naaman, and Naaman, well, he has a hard time with some stuff, but he has some good friends, including the little maid, and he does okay in the end. Then we have Elisha, and he's God's prophet, and so, well, thankfully he does the right thing here, but he has a servant, something like that, and well, he's tempted, and he gives in to the temptation, and well, this story doesn't really go so well for him. So, all right, why don't we tell the story? Hey kids, I'm glad you're here because today I have a story about a kid in the Bible. This is not a story about a grown-up. This is something that a kid did. Now, they weren't having a real good life. I keep saying they because I don't know her name. The Bible doesn't say her name. She was just a young girl that was taken away from her home and her country and her friends to go be a slave in another country. Naomi came in and said, well, we'll have you, and you. And they went and put her on like a supermarket shelf, and people could come along and buy her, and somebody did. Somebody called Naaman, and he bought this little girl to be the slave for his wife. And they got along pretty well. She did what she was supposed to do, and she seemed to be kind while she was doing it, and everybody seemed to be making the most of not a great situation. Until one day, this little girl noticed that her mistress, Mrs. Naaman, the guy who bought her, she was feeling sad. And she's like, why are you sad? And Mrs. Naaman said, well, my husband has leprosy. Now, leprosy is an awful disease. I'm trying to think if there's any good diseases. I can't think of any. They're all pretty bad. This one's really bad. It means that he's probably going to die, and he's going to have to make sure he doesn't touch anybody else or hang out with his friends or anything. And the little maid, the little girl who was the slave, was like, oh, I wish he lived in my home country, because if he lived in my home country, he could go see Elisha. Elisha's wonderful. He can do incredible things. He's a man of God, and God works through him. There was a story about a little boy who died, and Elisha was there, and with God brought the little boy back to life. So, I wish Naaman could be in my country, because I think this man of God would heal him. And Mrs. Naaman was like, oh, I wish he could be in your country. And she went to Naaman and said, you know, our little slave girl that we got from Israel, she says that if you were in her country, there's a man of God who could heal you. And Naaman was like, well, I think maybe I should go there. They probably don't like me very much. But he went to see the king, his boss, because Naaman was an army guy, and worked for the king. And so he went into the king and said, I'd like to go to Israel, just take a few soldiers, nothing much. I don't want to conquer anybody, don't want to bring any slaves back, but I hear they've got a man of God there who could maybe heal me of my leprosy. And the king says, I want you to go. I shall write a letter to this king, and this king will heal you. Because other kings did pretty much everything the king of this country said, because otherwise he'd make them slaves. So he wrote a letter. He gave the letter to Naaman and says, go take this letter, take 600 shekels of gold. No, wait, make it 6 1,000 shekels of gold. Take a whole bunch of silver, take some really nice clothes, some servants, an army. Just go along to Israel and meet this man of God. So Naaman did that. He pulled up to the king, because that's who Naaman knew to visit. Plus the letter was addressed to the king, and I figured, well, the king will tell me where to go. So Naaman took the letter into the king and said, I'm sorry, I have leprosy. And the king's like, whoa, wait a second. Will someone wipe this letter before I touch it? Please, someone wipe this letter before I touch this letter. And then he opens it up and he says, Naaman's a special person to me. I'd like for you to heal him. Thank you. And the king got mad because the king was scared that this king was, the other king was trying to trick them. And if they didn't heal him, they might come and attack them. So this king was like, who do you think I can't heal anybody of leprosy? This is crazy. And so he started tearing his clothes and he went a little bit insane. In fact, the king of Israel went so insane that people in other towns heard how insane he was going, including Elisha. And Elisha sent a message to the king saying, don't tear your clothes. You're going to need those. Just send Naaman to me. And so the king says to Naaman, go see this guy Elisha. He'll take care of you. So Naaman gets out with his chariots and his army and his servants and his gold and his silver and his clothes and his gifts and all of this stuff. And he trots out of the city to a little town and he goes to this little house that Elisha lives in and he pulls up with all this stuff. And Elisha sends out a messenger and says, welcome, Naaman. Really glad you're here. My boss, Elisha. He says if you go and wash in the Jordan, if you dip in it 7 times, then you will be healed of your leprosy. Isn't that great? And Naaman was like, are you kidding me? You mean he's not even going to come out and see does Elisha know who I am? I take slaves from wherever I want and take them back to my country. I'm a fierce man. He doesn't come out and see me. I think Naaman thought that Elisha would come out and go, where is the leprosy? Oh, abracadabra, poof, and do some sort of ceremony or something. That's not how God really works. So all he had to do was just go dip 7 times in the Jordan. But Naaman was like, no. We have better rivers where I am from. We've got this river, that's nicer than the Jordan. And we've got this river, which is even nicer than this river, which is nicer than the Jordan. So, no. I'm going home. And then some of Naaman's trusted servants came and said to Naaman, you've come all this way? If he'd asked you something difficult to do, you'd probably have done it, right? So why not do this easy thing? Naaman goes, okay. So he takes all this gold and this silver and the clothes and the gifts and the servants and the army and the whole entourage, and he goes down to the Jordan. Now, I've been to the Jordan. It's not a pretty river, at least now. This was a few thousand years ago. It might have been a bit different, but Naaman was like, oh, this one, really? Doesn't look enticing. But he goes down into the river and he goes under the water and then he comes up. That's one. He looks at himself. I don't see any difference yet. But that's just one. And he goes down a second time. And he comes up. Not yet. He goes down again, and then he comes up. 3, that's nearly halfway. I would expect to see some difference by now, but do you see any difference? It's the same, isn't it? It looks the same to me. Well, let's do one more, then we'll know we'll be over halfway. So he goes down and comes up a fourth time. It's definitely not half gone, and I don't think it's any different than when I first stepped into the river. But I'm here, I might as well do the last three, and down he goes, and up he comes. 5, 6. Seriously, there's absolutely no difference at all, but I'll go again. And he goes down the 7th time. No way. He was healed. He was clean. No more leprosy, nothing, all gone. You know what Naaman said as he came out of the water? He says, we might have better rivers, but they've got a better God. Their God's amazing. Let's go back and see if Elisha will see us now. They go up with everything and they come outside Elisha's little house. And this time Elisha is standing outside and he goes, hello, Naaman. How are you doing? And Naaman goes, I'm healed. And Elisha goes, I thought you might be. Naaman goes, we've got better rivers, better cities, but you have the best God. Here, I brought these gifts. You must have them. And Elisha goes, no, we don't need your gifts. God does not do stuff for money. He doesn't need your money. It's fine. Take your money and go home. And Naaman goes, oh, no, I insist. And Elisha goes, oh, no, I insist that you just take your money home. Your money's no good. And Naaman goes, oh, no, I insist more. And Elisha goes, I insist most that you do not give me your, we don't need it. God does not work that way. And so Naaman goes, okay, let me take some dirt and take it back home so that I can worship the one true God on Israel's soil. But when I go into the palace and they make me bow down to an idol, I hope God will understand that I'm going to have to do it there. And Elisha says, go in peace. It's all good. So Naaman puts everything together, and with all of his people and still got his gifts, he heads for home. Now, at the beginning of this story, we told you that there were 4 characters of this story, right? One was the little maid, the little girl that told about God and God's prophet. And then we told you about Naaman, who came and had the leprosy and got healed. And we told you about Elisha, the prophet, the man of God. But there was one other person. Elisha had a servant called Gehazi. I'm not really good at saying his name. And he was like, wow, that's a lot of gold. That's a lot of silver. I wouldn't need it all, just a little bit, it would be fine. Just a piece. He wouldn't even miss a piece. Excuse me. Oh, those clothes look nice. And so when Elisha went back inside, Gehazi ran up and stopped Naaman and his entourage. He says, 2 traveling prophets have just come from the hill country. They're not wealthy people. They don't really have clothes. We were wondering if maybe we could have a couple of your outfits for these prophets. Maybe one of your talents of silver, just to help their expenses while they stay. It would help a lot. And Naaman goes, of course. Gehazi was lying. No prophets had come. He just wanted the stuff for himself. Naaman's like, have these 2 outfits and take 2 talents of silver. And he gave him some people to carry them back for him. And when he got there, he hid the stuff and went inside. And Elisha goes, hello, Gehazi. Because Elisha knew how to say his name. And Gehazi, because I struggle with it, was like, hi, Elisha. And Elisha's like, where have you been? And Gehazi was like, nowhere. And Elisha says, I'm a man of God. And with God, I can bring a person back to life. I can take leprosy from this man Naaman, and you're trying to lie to me? You think I don't know where you were? Gehazi is like, yeah, okay. And Elisha says, because you've done this, the leprosy that went away from Naaman, it's going to come to you. Does that seem a bit harsh? Maybe, but lies matter. I mean, you can really hurt people with lies. The same as you can hurt people when you come into their country and take them away for slaves. I'd like to say that that never happens in this world anymore. But, the sin that was in the Old Testament of the Bible, that sin is still around. And there are kids hurting in this world today. Maybe people are mean to you sometimes. Try and get you to do something you don't want to do or that you don't think is right. Bullies are mean. Grown-up bullies are no better than kid bullies. But praise God that this little maid never lost her kindness and that God could still work through her. And even though something terrible happened to her, she was able to use her situation for some good. That's how God works in this sinful world. So be like the kid of this story and don't be like Gehazi of this story. Because even though we know his name and we don't know her name, I'd rather be like the little maid than the servant of Elisha. Hey, thanks for listening. The Bible's full of fabulous stories, and I'm so glad that you hang out here with me. I will be back again next month with another story. I'll see you then. For now, take care. Bye.